Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I am so excited for today. Before I introduce our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. For all these people that closed the door on me, I'm coming back to buy the building. Our guest today is the real, a true leader. I've seen them in community, listening, leaning in, observing, connecting the dots, leading by example. I've wanted to do this for a while. Now I finally get the opportunity to share them with you. Remember the first time that we got a chance to meet each other, myself and the guest, sitting at this awkwardly small table at this awesome restaurant, trying to have a deep conversation amongst all these loud, excited people. And I knew right away, I was like, this is going to be a friend for a long time. Our guest today is currently an integral part of one of our dear friends of the Culture Matters podcast businesses. If you listen to the show, Daniel Good, this wonderful man that's been on the show, I shout out his episodes. They're the vice president of his organization. They've owned businesses and been a part of growth in the collection space, which I have a whole, personal issue with. I'd love to unpack with them based on where I've struggled in my life. And they also have represented their state legislator in a leadership position on regulatory decisions and board things that go beyond me. I would love to learn about their home state. And at this point, I should probably introduce them. Sandra Albert, thanks for finally coming on and saying that badass quote, by the way, because that was your quote.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate you. I appreciate your audience of Culture Matters. I'm really, really grateful to be here today and to share in on this podcast with you. It's been an amazing friendship that we've built over the last 18 months, and I'm really excited to see kind of where we go together. So again, it is an honor to be here on your podcast. Thank you so much.
So what's up for all these people that close the door? Are they rolling around in their graves right now or what?
I mean, there's so much to that saying, right? Just, tragedy that's happened in my life, to the winning that I have, experienced, the path that I've been on. It's taken me into so many new directions and avenues and things that I never thought that I would experience. So, I'm super blessed, because honestly, the people that did close the door on me, I'm coming back and I'm coming back to buy the building. And it's a testimony to, my career, my entrepreneurship, that, nothing's going to stop me. I'm on a path, and the empire that I'm building, it's going to buy the buildings. You're not going to close the door on me.
Were there early signs of leadership in your career? Like did mentors, kind of show you
Yeah.
that or tell you that looking back?
Yeah, honestly, this isn't something to toot my own horn, but I've always had strong leadership inside of me. And anything that I have done, I have very much excelled at. And I've had great mentors along the way. I've learned a lot. And for me, it's just the experience of taking where I have failed, turning that into a positive and learning from it. And so, yeah, I've just always been a natural leader in everything that I do. So I'm kind of a chameleon. You can throw me into a new business or a new industry. I will do everything I can to learn and to thrive inside of that. And that's kind of the testimony of where my career has been. I mean, I have been everywhere from real estate to cosmetology to collections to construction. I mean, I've had a vast majority of experience that I've brought together to become the leader that I am today.
My guess is that at a very young age, you had a bed shaped like a tractor, kind of with an excavator.
No. honestly, like what I really wanted to be when I was a kid was I thought I was going to be a dolphin trainer. I was going to go work
No.
at SeaWorld. Marine biology was going to be my heart. And then I did this experience of a trainer for a day at SeaWorld. And they put us in the pool, which is at like 50 degrees. I had a dry suit on. It was terrible. I couldn't hardly breathe. And I was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be the career for me. I'm going to leave the seals here at SeaWorld and try something else.
How old were you?
18, 19. They actually don't even offer that program anymore.
Wow.
Just because of all of the controversy that's happened at SeaWorld. So I'm very grateful that I got the experience of training with the dolphins and being with the orcas. And it was very interesting and exciting, but it definitely paved the path that I was not to be a marine biologist.
Did it, were you upset that day? Like, is that like a culture shock?
You know, I think that, as a kid, you get wrapped up into some of those eclectic type places like SeaWorld or Disney World. And you're like, man, like I want to be the star of the show. And I think for me, it just realized that it was more of a dream of fantasy
Mhm.
versus kind of reality for me. So I did continue on with my cosmetology path. And for that, that opened up a lot of new experiences for me as well. So
Did you consider yourself someone that could sell in, or did that have to become something you had to teach yourself or be taught?
I think that I've just learned it over the years. I think that when it comes to selling, it's really being able to connect and personalize with people and understanding them and their needs. And I think I, from all of my backgrounds, whether it's cosmetology, real estate, collections, is just been to open my mind and my ears and listen to what the needs are, and then to be able to provide solutions. And a lot of that has been done through sales. So
When you're talking about a chameleon and learning new things, what's been your process, right? Because there's people listening that are in periods of transition that might be in a new environment.
sure.
So what's your process? Your
I'll
steps.
tell you the biggest thing that I've learned in changing careers and industry is to really, when you step into a new role, is to just be quiet. It's just to sit back and observe. You will know what's happening inside of a business if you just stop talking. If you just listen to the employees, if you just follow the systems and processes, it's going to tell you what works and what doesn't work. The path for you is going to be pretty obvious, but I think you need, I did that with my collection agency. I did that for a full year. I didn't make a single change in any of the systems and processes, in any of the employees. I just stepped back and I just listened. And you can learn a lot. Your employees will tell you, hey, this doesn't work, or hey, we've been really successful at this. And then it just kind of already creates the path for you of where you need to go with your leadership.
How did you? Were you afraid to listen at first at all, or did you?
Well, I'll tell you that when I stepped into the collection industry, I had absolutely not a lick of experience, which that kind of is like the chapters of my life. I was intimidated. I was intimidated because when I bought my agency, I had a full staff, and some of those staff members had been there for, 15 plus years. And, there was a significant age difference. I'll tell you that some of the people inside the agency, they kind of made the decision that I'm not going to work for this young woman who doesn't have any experience in the collection industry. And we feel that, she's going to run the business in the ground because she lacks in the experience. While I may have lacked in the experience, I didn't lack in leadership. And so it was a little scary to step into something new, but also, I knew that I had a staff that would support me, and I knew that there was other people inside of the industry that were rooting for me. So when you step into something new, it is scary, but you're always going to find people that are going to be in your corner and there to cheer you on. It was honestly, after owning the agency for almost 10 years, it was really rewarding because there were people out there that didn't want to see me win. And I think year after year, as my doors continue to stay open and as my business grew and as I, brought on new employees, I think honestly that some of them are probably pretty shocked.
How did you earn the respect of the people that had the experience? Maybe they had the tenure.
I think really what it was is that whole part of just stepping back and allowing people to lead inside of the company, where I didn't come in and change the culture. I didn't come in and change, the people. I allowed them to lead, which then allowed me to lead. So if you come in with, kind of a humble, presence and attitude, people are willing to work with you and teach you. And I think we just kind of led together. My employees helped me, understand compliance and reporting, and I helped them grow professionally in leadership, and, giving them the skills of, with working with my employees, some of them are kind of young, and I would bring on inexperienced collectors, and I knew that my collection agency wasn't going to be their end all be all, but it was my job to pour into them so that one day when they left the nest of my collection agency, I was setting them on a path to be successful. And many of those young women now have very successful jobs inside of the government and lead teams. And so I felt like, by me pouring into them of showing them, what leadership looks like, it has set them on a completely different path. And I'm super excited to see, how they grow and where they go.
Is that a stressful environment in that
Yeah.
niche?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to like collections, you don't get paid unless you collect. And there's, it comes to ethics. When I was running my agency, it was very, very important for me to, show my staff that we're not just dealing with horrible debtors who just didn't want to pay their bills. Most people that are actually in collections, it wasn't, a conscious choice of theirs to not pay their bills, specifically like in the medical field. No one plans to get sick. No one plans to have to go to the hospital. But then when you leave 6 months later, you're being hit with, collections, and it could be $40,000 and $50,000 worth of debt. So the way I ran my agency was that I just tried to be very personable with people and tried to work with them. I tried to explain to them, to create a plan of, hey, we're going to create a financial plan for you. We're going to be able to pay off this collection debt and maybe even other collection debts that are with other agencies. I'm going to help you repair your credit and set you up for the future. So it was just a way to really show the world that, the collection industry, for me personally, it's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, it does happen, but I'm here to help you build and repair.
Hmm. How did you do you think that had a relationship with the morale, like that philosophy?
Yeah, because you gave it the personal side. I mean, pretty much anyone that's been in collections, they're going to tell you that their experience with a collection agency was horrible. That they threatening letters and terrible phone calls and threats of, being taken to court. I was a part of the American Collectors Association, and part of that association, we held ourselves to a higher standard. The federal government has done really a great job by improving collection practices, but this specific affiliation, we just held ourselves to a higher standard. We didn't need the government to step in and say, hey, do better. We actually pledged to do better. And so I think that when it came to my agency, I prided myself in having a heart and compassion. And, I worked for my clients, but I also too worked for my debtors. I can't tell you how many times that I probably maybe would have upset my clients because, I would work out a payment plan that maybe my client wouldn't agree to because it wasn't fast enough for them. But, I also had to take into account, this person's financial situation, and, maybe they can't be locked in at $1,000 a month in a payment plan because that's just not reasonable, right? So it's finding the balance of what worked on both sides.
How important was culture?
Super important, because I'm going to tell you, no one likes to be called by a collection agency, right? So like your initial reaction is never good, right? Your Google reviews are horrible because people are angry that you've reported it on their credit. So culture was super important. It was always consistently pouring into my staff and reminding them that, even though someone's angry at you, you really are working for them and you really are helping them to get above and tackle these debts that are, hurting their credit and impacting, their life. People don't realize how important a credit score is. It genuinely will impact, specifically in our area. We live next to a military base. Well, you cannot have open collections with a security clearance. So, it impacts you not just for the financing of your car, not just for the financing of your house, but also potentially a security clearance, which is your employment. So, it was constantly pouring into my staff and saying, look, like, we are doing the right thing and we do have a heart and we're here to help these people. And to, keep that negativity out. It's hard. You get beat down at the end of the day, when people are just cussing at you and hanging up on you. And
Were there rituals that work to help kind of filter that angst?
honestly, I felt like we would kind of make like light of the situations of like people that would, call us all the fun, like terrible names at the end of the day. And, I would play music sometimes to just like pump them up, because like you just got down. Again, nobody wants to hear from a collection agency. So, culture again was just my utmost importance. And it was like buying lunch for the girls, or, making sure that we went out and did things together as a staff, whether that's going to dinner or we're going to the spa, or, things like that. Just to make sure that, it kept everyone going.
Do you think at some level it has prepared you for contracting?
Yeah, I mean, because in the same realm, I may not. I'm still collecting, right? I'm collecting from my general contractors who may not want to pay on net 30. They're trying to push me to net 60, net 90. So yeah, I definitely think that it's prepared me for the financial aspect of the contracting world. I do have staff that worked in my collection agency. They do work at Bay Country because they
Yeah.
wanted to follow me. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, why follow?
If you were to ask her, that question, one of my former employees, she would say that she just really liked working for me and the leadership and just the value that I saw in her. This specific person, she was a single mom and she had no real working experience because she had been raising children and was in a marriage for, 20 plus years. And so, one of the things that they say when you own a business is don't hire friends or family. And I broke that rule because she was a friend and she was family through marriage. And I brought her on. She had no experience, but I believed in her, like
Wow.
I believed that she could attain her goals and dreams. And so I think because I invested in her when she had nothing, she now feels that, I want to continue to work with Sandra because she believed in me when I had nothing. And now I have all these skills and I want to continue to serve and work with her.
Wow. How important is belief for you?
Super important. Super important. I mean, you know, when it comes to your goals and your dreams and God and just anything that you believe in, I feel like it gives you purpose. It gives you life. I've reached very low lows in my life, Jay. for some of your listeners, they may not know my journey, but I ended up getting a federal lawsuit against my collection agency.
Wow.
And with the advice of, 18 attorneys sitting in a boardroom, they told me to shut it down. Well, shutting down my business was not just shutting it down for me, it was shutting it down for all of my employees and all of these single moms and just people that relied on my employees for income. And I'll tell you, if I didn't have belief, I wouldn't be here today, because it took me to such a dark place and I felt ashamed. I felt disappointed, and I became just very suicidal. I wanted to make it all end. And 18 months ago, I was going to jump off a bridge. Like I was dead set on it, that I just couldn't continue on with this shame of losing my business and disappointing all of my staff that had been poured in, most of them, their entire life, they had worked for my agency. So
Wow.
the failure of that is what I felt. And so again, if I didn't have belief that things could get better, I wouldn't be here today.
Someone that's listening is in that state right now. What do you say to them?
When you think you've hit your rock bottom, it's not your rock bottom. And when I look back at what I was going to end my life over to where I am today, it's a complete 180. I'm in a completely different career. I'm running an entirely new company, and I would have never in a million years said that I would go from jumping off a bridge to running a construction company. So for the person that's at your rock bottom, it's not your rock bottom. Like, if I could hug you and hold you and tell you that I've been there, that I was, when I received this lawsuit, I had a S corporation, and the attorneys told me, you think that you're protected by this corporate veil. The corporate veil is not bulletproof. It can be pierced. That was the most terrifying words I've ever heard. There was, I wasn't served properly. There was potential that I could go be held liable because I didn't have representation in court. I could spend a few days in jail. I mean, all these crazy scenarios, filing bankruptcy, not only for the business, but for me personally. Like, so I literally thought that there was no way out. And literally, with the grace of God, I put something out there on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for something. And it really was my last ditch effort. And, when Daniel reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you, I didn't know that that was going to be my turning point, because in my mind, I still was jumping off a bridge. So again, like, I feel like the testimony is that it's not your rock bottom, that there's something out there for you and you have a purpose, and you just need to tap into it, and God will use you in ways that you have no idea that are coming for you.
Wow.
Yeah. When I thought the doors were closed, in my mind, when I shut the agency down, it was like, okay, where do I go from here? Obviously, I have a big financial background. Obviously, I have, leadership. So I'm going to go just be a financial analyst. I'm going to go work for the government or a government contractor and live out my days crunching numbers. I'm going to tell you, Jay, I applied and had people hand walk my resume, and I couldn't even get an interview. And, I'm running a $10 million collection agency, but yet I can't even get an interview for being an analyst. I mean, that was kind of crazy to me. And it just really showed that, there is a purpose and God has a plan. And that plan, I had no idea was going to be in construction. And so, after Daniel and I had talked, and, he shared his vision and he shared his mission. And, honestly, at first I was bought in, but I was still like, no, I don't think that's my path. And I came home and I thought about it and I was like, nothing really else is happening. And I think I need to go through this door. And so I opened the door and here I am 18 months later. And it blows my mind that I literally was going to jump off a bridge. And today my life is nothing short of amazing.
What's so amazing?
The way that my life has turned by investing into a new industry, investing into new employees. My motto at Bay Country is that, I want to change the lives of my employees. And then in return, I want them to change lives. So that's my goal. My goal, and I tell my employees all the time, is I want to change your life. Like, you deserve that. And I want to give you every opportunity that I can to change your life. And in return, what I ask for is that you do the same, that you do what you can to change someone else's life.
Well, what was it about the vision that was shared with you that even created interest?
Well, I'm the chameleon, just throw me into something new. I think honestly, it was the drive and the passion that Daniel had, that the words that he shared with me and the goals, I could feel them. And this was a completely
Wow.
new path for me because now I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm an intrapreneur. So now I'm putting all my dreams and my goals and I'm investing them into someone else's dreams. And that's hard when you've owned your own business and you've been your own boss, going back and working for someone else. That's difficult, because you're used to being at the top and you're used to making the decisions. And so it was a learning curve for me, but I knew that I believed in Bay Country and I believed in Daniel and I believed in those employees, that I knew that the goals and dreams that Daniel was sharing with me, I knew they were obtainable.
And for those that aren't familiar with Bay Country, what exactly does it do? How does it serve the common public?
Sure. I mean, we are a civil construction company, and we also have an asphalt concrete stormwater division. So, Bay Country has been in business for 38 years. If you go back and listen to Daniel's podcast here on Culture Matters, you can really understand his story. And I encourage people to do that to see where we've come from. But this company, even though it's been around for 38 years, it's a new company. When Daniel and I got together, we sat down and we created, the vision and the mission statement. And we wrote a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan. And we got super granular with those plans because we knew that those dreams were obtainable, but you need the map to get there. And so by creating those plans and really like sticking to them, it's helped us become successful, grow our revenue, grow our employees. I've created completely new systems and processes. I've created new positions inside of Bay Country that we've never seen before. So, it was a lot of work and it still is a lot of work and it's ever evolving. But yeah, I appreciated that Daniel allowed me to lead. It wasn't this, I'm going to be your boss and I'm going to tell you what to do. It was, hey, I respect you as a leader. I respect you as an entrepreneur. I want you to come on and lead with me. And so that, I think, is what's made us successful by working together, because he's allowed me to take my leadership and the skills that I bring, even though I'm not well versed in the construction industry. He's allowed me to take the strengths that I do have and apply them inside of the business.
Why is it so important to have a plan and
To have a plan, if you don't have the plan, where are you going? Right? Like, if you don't know the map to get there, then how are you going to get there? How are you going to hold yourself accountable? How are you going to know if it's working or it's not? Because you have to set, measurable marks. And are you meeting those marks? And what are you doing to obtain those marks? And do those marks need to be changed? Do you need to be challenged more? I mean, if you don't have a plan and a vision, it just, to me, it feels like you're on a rat wheel. You're just chasing things that aren't really obtainable because there's no actual map to get there.
I have this thought from that. The plan comes before accountability. Um,
Yes,
the plan comes before accountability. Planning is our responsibility.
absolutely.
Thanks for my threads post.
And also
This
too,
is awesome.
if you don't have a plan, then what do you tell your employees? Oh, hey, we're going in this direction, but I'm not sure how we're going to get there, right? Like, if you're driving somewhere, do you not put the GPS in because there's your map to get there, right? Like, if you don't have, a charted way to reach those goals, then you're just going to find yourself floating out there, and it's not going to be obtainable.
How would you go about communicating plans to the people? What worked for you?
Well, when you find yourself, as for instance, at our Christmas party or any type of gathering that we get together, I think it's very important to continuously share what our mission is, what our vision is, and what our goals are. I'm constantly sharing those goals on our weekly leadership meetings, because this is where we are. We haven't met the mark, or we have. If you don't share that, on a global perspective, then people too also feel like they're just floating around. I need you to know that what you're doing inside of, let's say, my superintendent, these are the goals that you are to hit, so that we obtain our goals together as a team. And I think communicating that through, by example of what you're doing, by verbally communicating it, by having that plan hanging on the wall so people can read it and see it. It's super important for you to build culture by showing the vision and the plan.
You said example and verbal.
Yes. Like, verbally, meaning I'm verbally telling you, physically by having it on the wall, and an example of, this is, if these are my goals, I'm showing you by example of how I'm mapping it out, by the tracking that I'm doing of the dollars that are spent, by the tracking of the bids. There's, measurable ways of showing an example of how I'm going to hit those goals.
Like, see, so physical, I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
Verbal, I'm hearing it. An example, I'm feeling it.
Feeling it. I'm seeing you do exactly what you said you're going to do in your plan.
Why is that important?
I think it's important because in our society, I think that there's a lot of people that talk the talk, they don't walk the walk. And we're really good about putting ourselves out there on social media, and we're really good about, showing up in a fancy car, but are we actually staying late? Are we actually doing the dirty work and getting it done? And accountability, just because I'm a leader inside of a country, it doesn't mean that my team can't hold me accountable in the same way that I hold them accountable. If I'm not meeting my mark, as an example, then I need my team to say, hey, Sandra, like, we've seen this, or there's, you're not meeting your mark. I mean, it comes a point where the accountability it's just as important on both sides of leadership, right? From the employee's perspective to management, and from management to employee.
How do you create that safety for them to hold you accountable?
Well, I think I create the safety by loving the people, by making them feel comfortable. I've always had an open door policy. I want your feedback. If I'm lacking in leadership, I will tell you, Jay, I all the time call my team and say, how can I serve you? How can I serve you to do better? What tools do you need to do better? What systems and processes, what equipment do you need? Because if I'm not serving them, how do I expect them to serve me?
Wow. What about where do you see asking questions and looking for feedback where you're the one, or the leader's instigating it? Where does that fall in to your philosophy?
I think that comes into really having your leadership meetings. I think it comes by being transparent. When I'm struggling with something, I want my employees to know that I'm real. I'm not just somebody who sits at the top and, sits with my feet up on the desk, right? Like I struggle too. And I think that's what allows them to be open with me is that I'm open with them, and that, I tell them my struggles, and I tell them where I'm lacking, and I tell them like when I need their help, or, in the same way, I try to serve them. And I think in return, they serve me by acknowledging that, Sandra does struggle. Sandra does lack in knowledge. I can't tell you how many times like my team has, I've pronounced something wrong, or I've thought, I thought in my mind, oh, a water fountain. Well, I'm thinking like a water fountain in like the Bellagio. That's not that kind of water fountain. We're talking about a water line, so there's been a lot of things to learn.
Mm.
And I think the patience of my team has built the trust, and in the trust comes the comfortability to have those conversations that maybe are hard for other employees to have, but because we have the trust, they feel comfortable to share.
What are some of the pieces of the successful meetings that you've had throughout your career? What makes them successful or productive?
For me, successful meetings and what makes them productive, I think it all goes back to you being able to, as a leader, recognize the shortfalls in your company. I think it is acknowledging the problems and the complaints that employees may have. And I think it's doing the action, taking the action. I can't tell you how many times I've seen leaders where, they have the open door policy and they let their employees come in and they listen to all the complaints, but then there's no follow through. There's no follow through to fix their culture. There's no follow through to fix the problems. So I think what makes a successful meeting and leadership is that you actually have the action and the follow through to fix what it is that's been brought to your attention.
How do we follow through?
Oh, yeah. Isn't that the golden question? I think when it comes to being a leader, it's your job to research all solutions.
Hmm.
I think that, you know, I struggle sometimes when an employee comes to me and they like want to complain about something. I always, turn it back around and say, well, what's your solution? You know, it's not always about me bringing the solution either. It's to also involving the employee, because then they feel like they're a part of it. Again, I want to provide the resources to my team, but sometimes I don't have those resources. Sometimes my team is the one to point out, hey, we need this resource. I think it's just being open to all solutions.
Hmm. What about buy-in, right? What's your state of the union for leaders that aren't bought in to their because I see that a lot in our culture today. People that I'm not quite certain how bought in they truly are. Maybe they're not even uh, totally clear, even that they're not. They might think they are, but the reason I'm asking this, you put out such energy. Like I feel your buy-in. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm talking to somebody like me. Good. All right. Yeah. What's going on? What's wrong? Right.
Honestly, Jay, when I
Are we just
started,
like the people that are bought in on life, or like I don't get it? Sorry to interrupt, but
no, I'll tell you that there was a comment made to Daniel about me, and the comment was, Sandra's going to come in and she's going to fire everyone. And I was super offended by that comment because I was like, wait a minute. I love people. I'm not firing anyone. I'm like little PETA. I'm going to save all of them and take them with me. I'm going to tell you though, Jay, after a year and a half, though, inside of the business, I can see who's going to make it and who's not. And that bothers me because I want to take everyone with me, but not everyone is made to go with me. And I struggle as a leader. I struggle with that because I love people so much that I want to see everyone win, but not everyone is made to win. And not everyone is made to make it to the end.
I now
So
have a title of this podcast, Sandra's Arc. You can only
yeah,
take two of each.
save them all, but
Two
they're
of
not,
each.
you can't save them all. They're not all going to make it. As
Tides are
I
coming.
have, yeah, as I've elevated as a leader, I can start to notice like those signs of like who is bought in. Can they be bought in? And there are times that they can't be bought in because they're not meant to make the dream team. And unfortunately, like, your time will come. And I am super appreciative of every single person that has served at Bay Country over the last 38 years. And I hope that I get the opportunity to meet all of them and to shake their hand and to thank them, because if it wasn't for their time given to Bay Country, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, going back and really like thinking about what that culture looked like and where we are today, and just so grateful that they gave their time away from their family and their friends to build into a business that today is still here and is going to change lives.
Values.
Yeah.
Top value that comes to mind of the culture.
Top value for culture.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's transparency for me.
Mm.
Transparency, because so many times inside of a business, you hide things that, you're not being honest with your team. You're not being honest with yourself. And transparency is what's going to take you to the end. Because if you're hiding financial problems and you're hiding addiction and you're hiding things that are really going to keep you from growing as a leader, transparency. You've got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to be honest with your staff.
What's another value for culture?
Ooh. Another value for culture, I would say, is determination. It's going to be tough as an entrepreneur. I don't know anyone that sits back and is like, man, this is so easy. Right? I mean, the first thing that comes to your mind as an entrepreneur is it's hard. It's so hard. So, determination, because you're going to have to push through it. You're going to have to show your team that on the days you don't want to show up, you show up. On the days that it's hard and you want to give up, you don't, you keep going. So, determination, like you're going to get there, but it's not going to be easy.
What's your word for 2024?
Oh, my word for 2024 is, gosh, Jay, I have it. Wow. Struggling here. I actually wrote it and sent it to Brian.
Wow.
I need to phone a friend. I think my word is wow, what is it? Well, this isn't good if I can't remember my word and it's already April. So I'm going to go with that. It's, I really struggle as a leader for allowing my emotions to rule. I make decisions based on emotion, and that is not healthy for our company. So for me, it's being stronger in who I am. And I think identity. So let's go with that word, identity.
Hmm.
Um, I have struggled with identity because I've thrown myself into these new careers, and I've had personal trauma that's happened to me, and it's just yeah, I think my word is identity, and being strong in who I am and believing in what I can do. I feel like I'm elevating so much this year, and I struggle with making sure that I'm true to myself and I'm true to my core values. Being a part of TCS Women, and being a part of Bay Country and being a leader in that, like, I need to make sure that my identity is strong and that what I'm preaching and what I'm putting out there really is who I am.
Wow. Beautiful. That's powerful. What's it been like to have people seeing you on film, on camera, on stage, on
Yeah.
podcasts, and be resounding, yeah, resounding with your words.
When you put yourself out there, you open yourself up for a lot of judgment. And the feedback has been, in some ways, really incredible. Some people have said, Sandra, I've always seen you as a leader. Sandra, I've always seen you like being on stage and talking to hundreds of women, and like it seems so natural to you. But then there's been some other people that, the negative feedback of, what are you doing? This isn't who you are. Um, you know, where are you going with this platform? And, why do you think it's okay to just plaster yourself all over social media? So, it's been some mixed reviews, but overall, I feel that what's happening in my life is the calling that I've been meant to bring. For me, I really want to reach out to women inside of the construction industry. I want to support these women. I want to know what's going on in their lives. I want to know, where they're struggling and how I can bring solutions to them.
Hmm,
Um, so I'm excited about, you know, where I'm going and how much my life really has changed in the last 18 months.
hmm. I'm so glad that we finally got to do this.
Same.
If we were to put this episode into a theme, you know, how would we articulate it, you think? Or what would the theme be? Your theme.
My theme would be, this isn't your end. This isn't your end. I think my story repeats itself over and over again. Tragedy, but out comes positivity. Tragedy, but out comes growth. Tragedy, but out comes, love. I think that it's just, it's not the end. Like, keep going. You can do this. You're making an impact. And even if it feels small, it's an impact. You're changing lives. Like, let's go.